Lately, I've been riding two very interesting bikes, the first of which you can see behind me. That's the Canyon Strive CF 9.0 Race, basically the same kind of bike as the Canyon Enduro World Series race team use. It's their top-of-the-line model, and it costs roughly £4,000. The other bike that I've been riding is from a bit close to home. It's an orange Alpine 160 RS with a few custom bits and bobs on it, and it too is about £4,000. In some ways, these are very similar bikes. They both got around 160mm of travel at either end. They're both sort of like long, low and slack geometry, and they're both designed for razzing down hills about as fast as you can, but still being able to climb up. The similarities do end there though. The Canyon, as you'd expect from a German company, is just jam-packed full of technology. It's got a carbon fibre frame, it's got a neat little suspension and geometry adjusting system at the rear. So using a remote on the bars, you adjust a little piston which then extends and shifts the position of the shock. Doing that then means that the travel is changed, so you've got a long travel mode and then a shorter travel mode for sort of more pedally sections. It also adjusts the geometry of the bike, so it steepens up the head angle by around 1.5 degrees, does the same to the seat angle. That means you're in a slightly higher, better ground clearance position on the bike in the pedalling mode, and then it drops you back nice and slack and low for the descent mode. As you'd expect from Canyon, obviously their direct sales model allows for incredible value. It's got a selection of really shiny kit on it. SRAM XX1 11-speed, Mavic Crossmax XL wheels, loads of other lovely bits, basically all top drawer stuff. The orange on the other hand is a very, very different story. It's handmade from folded aluminium sheet up in Halifax in the north of England, and it's welded up by proper Yorkshire blokes as well. It's also a very simple design. The monocoque front end is mated to the monocoque rear end via a single pivot. This is the design that Orange has used for years and years and years, I mean going back literally decades now, but it's one that they've been working on all this time, so they've actually got it really refined. So it might be simple, but that doesn't mean that it's sort of basic in any way. They've messed about with the pivot location and it actually works really well. It's something that's really simple, I mean like fish and chips, but it's fish and chips done really, really well. Obviously Orange sell through bike shops, so that means they can't really deliver the value the Canyon do. That means that you don't quite get the kit list. You do get a really good fork up front, you get a 36 RC2, that is an optional extra, you have to pay about £150, it's included in our budget. But the rest of the kit is slightly lower end. You get Alex rims rather than the fancy Mavic ones, you get the entry-level 11-speed drivetrain from SRAM, which is GX instead of the top, which is XX1, and the rest of the kit is definitely a little bit cheaper. That means that there's definitely a weight penalty for the Orange. It tips the scales at around £31, whereas the Canyon is around £29. That's a fair chunk of weight if you're going to be carrying that around all day. That also points to something that's very different about the personalities of the two bikes. The Strive is an out-and-out enduro race machine, whereas the Alpine, as the name suggests, is built for hammering down big mountains. As you'd expect, both of the bikes ride very, very differently. The Canyon is definitely lighter on its toes. It's very rounded, it sort of likes going uphill, likes doing downhill stuff. Again, I found that I didn't use the shapeshifter switch all that much. I found that it climbed better in the lower bottom bracket and slacker head angle mode, and it just felt a little bit perched. On the other hand, the Orange gets absolutely no such bells and whistles. You get two brake levers, a remote for your drop post, and then a shifter. That's it. That doesn't mean that the Orange can't do climbing and descending. It can definitely do both of those well. It means that the way it does it is sort of in a bit more simple and, to be fair, maybe occasionally a bit more of a brutal style. It's a bit of a thug of a bike. When you hit the rear brake over rough ground, the back end does stiffen up. That's called brake jack, and it's a bit common with single pivot designs. That does mean that when you get into rough sections like braking bumps or whatever, that back end fishtails around and slaps about. Conversely, as soon as you hit the apex and get off that brake, the bike just hooks up beautifully. It's really quite an exciting, sort of addictive thing to do. The Strive is definitely a bit more of a subdued bike. It kind of feels well damped through the carbon frame. That 4-bar rear end is sort of active all the time. It sort of sucks up bumps. Does that mean it's better? Well, maybe not. I actually preferred the sort of feeling of excitement with the Alpine. To use grossly unfair stereotypes, the Strive is an incredibly well-educated and super efficient German, whereas the Orange is a man from Yorkshire with a whippet and a fag hanging out of his gob. For our American viewers, a fag is a cigarette in this situation. The other thing, especially if you're a racer, is that the Canyon is much more complex. Again, that's fine if you're the full factory support team and you've got your mechanic and everything like that, but if you're a privateer racer, then the simplicity of the Orange will be really attractive. It's a bike that you can fix with pretty basic tools, it's definitely built to last, and it'll take an absolute beating. The Canyon, it's not unreliable, we have had a couple of issues with shapeshifters in the past, but it's definitely not going to survive being hurled down a rock garden once you crash, quite as well as the nice thick metal of the Orange. I think this is the really interesting thing with bikes at the moment, that despite so many years of people refining their designs, you can still achieve pretty much the same end in vastly, vastly different ways. You can throw as much technology as you like, say the Strive, or you can keep things very simple and just keep tweaking and refining over years. I mean, which bike is better? I don't know, that really comes down to your personal preference. For me, I'd probably take the Orange. It's a bit more exciting, it feels quite alive, there's a lot of feedback in there. But the Strive, is it faster? It could possibly be. And if you've got strong feelings either way, you can let us know in the comments.